Hello, and thanks for taking the time to be on today's call. Appreciate your time and attention on this. My goal, retirement income planning, can be incredibly confusing, can be incredibly complex, and always a lot of uncertainty surrounding it. So my goal is to help people to understand, really get clarity on what it is that they want their lives to look like when it comes to being retired, how they want to spend their days, and then to figure out, based on their available resources, how they can take the monies that they've saved, or the assets that they have, and turn that into an income that will help to support their desired lifestyle. My name is George Grumbacher. I'm a 20-year financial services veteran. I've spent many years working in a management and advisory capacity for Fortune 100 companies. I've helped thousands of people. Founded my own financial firm some years ago, and I'm honored to have been named to Investopedia's list of the top 100 most influential financial advisors in the United States. More importantly than that, there is Big James and Baby Jack, a little bit of my wife there, my two boys. Some of the challenges that we find when we start to think about doing retirement income planning, challenges in designing retirement income, is that there's not one right way to do it. I wish that there was just one way to successfully design retirement income, but there's not. And unfortunately, if you were to ask 100 different financial advisors, you'd probably get 100 different answers. There's so many different variables that go into designing retirement income. And so much of it has to do with not so much the numbers of it, but more so what it is that you want your life and your lifestyle to look like once you're no longer working full time. Where are you going to live? What do you want your life to look like? Who will you spend your time with? Will you work? Will you not? How do you remain healthy? All those different variables need to be taken into consideration above and beyond just what financial vehicle or what strategies that you're going to use in order to generate income. And the media is certainly not helping. The internet's certainly not helping. There's so many different resources that are available. It's really, we're drowning in information and starving for wisdom these days. I think that is a very real thing. And there are so many different quote unquote experts out there in the media, working for financial firms. You probably have some experts in your family who you may or may not want to rely on. But these are all challenges that make being in your situation an unenviable one, as you're trying to sort through everything and make good decisions on your future. And again, it's so important because a lot of these decisions you can't unmake. You get one opportunity with a lot of these things. So you want to put yourself in a position to make the right decisions. So, important considerations. What do you want your life to look like when you are no longer working for full-time income? Where will you live? Who will you spend your time with? I mean, that's talking about family and loved ones. Do you want to live in the same city, within driving distance, the same part of the country? These are incredibly important things you need to be thinking about, not only as an individual, but if you have a spouse or loved ones, a significant other, you need to be having these conversations with that person as well, so that you can get on the same page as much as possible, because life will be totally different. So these are incredibly important and difficult conversations, but conversations that must be had. Will you work in retirement? What will you do for fun, for your hobbies? How will you spend your time? And how will you maintain your health? These are just a handful of really important questions and considerations you need to be thinking about. But really what I wanted to focus on today are the primary risks that we face in retirement. You can put a great plan together, but if we're not cognizant, if we're not mindful and thinking about these 6 risks, then we will be, for lack of a better term, at risk of them derailing our situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one individually and explain why it is that you should be thinking about them. And then the second half of the conversation, I'm going to be talking about the primary vehicles or ways that we will be taking income in retirement, and how they interface with these risks. So are the accounts that I'm going to be talking about, are they at risk for these different things? All right, so withdrawal rate, sequence of returns risk. This is an important one when there is a market event. I'm making this video in April of 2020, and with COVID-19, the coronavirus, and sheltering in place, the world's economy is having an event unlike we've ever seen before. The stock market went down quite a bit. So understanding that the world that we've been living in since 2008, post 2008, when the stock market went straight up for 10 years, is not the way that things always are. The reality is that the market does go in cycles. The market goes up, it goes down. We have bull markets and we have bear markets. We probably all understand that, but perspective is a valuable thing. You need to take a step back and recognize that, should I be in retirement right now, having to take money out of investments in a down market that could dramatically impact my ability to stay retired? So withdrawal rate and sequence of returns deals with really the 5 years leading up to my retirement, and then 5 years after I retire. If all my money is at risk in the stock market or some kind of a market, real estate market, if I'm having to sell off assets to create income during that time, how will that impact my ability to stay retired? So that is an important risk to be thinking about. Liquidity and flexibility. So the cost of healthcare in retirement, Fidelity estimates that at almost $250,000 or something higher than that. We're living longer, which is an absolute benefit, but unfortunately the cost of care is going up as well. So having money on hand, very flexible. Will I have that in retirement? How much will I need to have in cash on hand? So something to really take into consideration. And volatility and market risk is very similar to withdrawal rate, sequence of returns. But even if I'm not taking the money out, how much of my retirement assets are at risk from the stock market or the real estate market, or just market fluctuations in general? So something to really keep in mind. Inflation and lifestyle risk. We've not experienced a lot of inflation necessarily over the past 10 years, but I think that that's going to become a very, very key element to our retirement income planning for the foreseeable future. So if you're watching this, if you're watching this and you are in the process of designing your retirement income right now, I think keeping a close eye on inflation is going to be a key component to your ability to have the kind of lifestyle that you want in your retirement. Legacy risk. Are you interested in leaving money to somebody else or some entity or organization, if it's a nonprofit or a religious organization, or to family members or friends or community? That's obviously going to be not necessarily a risk, but if that's a consideration, that's going to play into how you design your retirement income. And the biggest risk of them all is longevity risk. And that simply means that how long are we expecting to live for? If we retire at 65 and intend to pass away at 75, planning for 10 years of retirement is considerably different than if I retired at 65, only plan to live till 75, but live till 85 or 95. Well, obviously that extra year, 2 years, 5, 10, 20 years will have an enormous impact on my ability to be financially viable in my retirement planning years. So all of those: withdrawal rate, liquidity, volatility, inflation, legacy, and lifestyle. How do we successfully navigate all those different risks? Now, the next part of this conversation is, what are the primary retirement income funding sources? So I saved up all these assets for my retirement. How do I turn them into income that will be there for as long as I need them? So that is obviously what you're trying to figure out, is which one of these vehicles, if any, to work with, or what combination of these vehicles makes sense. how will you put the whole picture together? So the first is Social Security. Second is pensions. Third are annuities. Fourth are defined contribution plans like IRAs and 401ks, investment portfolios, home equity, and life insurance. There are certainly others, but these are 7 of the really primary ways that we design retirement income. So what I'm going to do is talk about the different risks over here, the 6 primary risks that we went over a second ago, and then take one each individually to say, yes, is Social Security at risk from a legacy perspective, liquidity, volatility, inflation, withdrawal rate, or longevity? Okay, so in this example, does Social Security have a legacy risk? Well, yes, it does. Social Security does have a death benefit, but it's very, 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 very modest. So you're not going to have money left over from Social Security. There is no liquidity within Social Security. You just get the government sending you a paycheck every month. There is no volatility risk. I mean, theoretically speaking, there's no volatility because you're not investing this money. There's no inflation risk because there is a cost of living adjustment on Social Security. There's no withdrawal rate or sequence risk, and there's no longevity risk because Social Security will be paid to you for as long as you live. Okay. Pension plans, something that is nothing but a good thing, but all too few of us actually have access to pensions these days. 9 times out of 10, yes, you will not leave money to loved ones out of a pension. There is no liquidity to it. It's essentially like Social Security, so it's a guaranteed stream of income that will hit your paycheck, or you'll get a paycheck for the rest of your life. There is no risk for the most part from a volatility standpoint because you are not investing this money. There may be an inflation risk. I don't know. Each plan is probably different as to whether or not there's cost of living adjustments on it. You don't have to worry about withdrawal rate or sequence, and you also don't need to worry about longevity because, again, like Social Security, as long as you live, you will get that payment on a monthly basis. So it's a great thing to have. Hopefully you have a pension. Annuities. Like so many things in the world, if you were to Google annuity, you'll get 50% good, 50% bad. And I don't want to talk about annuities too much, simply that annuities inherently are neither good nor bad. There are some great annuities out there. There are some bad annuities out there. There are some great financial people that sell annuities out there, and there are some bad financial people out there that sell annuities. So, but let's just look at what it actually is in annuity based on its merits. All right. How does it stack up against these different risks? Potentially, it will fall prey to legacy risk. It just depends. Some annuities do have a death benefit, others do not. I want you to look at an annuity like a Swiss Army knife, where there's so many different kinds and they do so many different things that they have a lot of flexibility and they are customizable. From a liquidity standpoint, oftentimes annuities are not liquid. Sometimes they can be. You can use annuities these days to pay for things like long-term care should you need it. So I just list that as potentially. Volatility. Most annuities have some kind of guaranteed payment feature on them. So you should not have volatility risk. Inflation risk. Again, you could have a cost of living just like a pension. It depends on the annuity. You do not need to worry about withdrawal rate or sequence risk. And you also do not need to worry about longevity risk when it comes to annuities, because like pensions and like Social Security, they are designed to give you a monthly payment for as long as you shall live. And from my perspective, that guaranteed lifetime income that an annuity provides is the greatest benefit to an annuity product. Sometimes there's a lot of complexity to them, and I'm not a fan of complexity, but in its purest, simplest form, what an annuity can do is give you a stream of guaranteed lifetime income. Defined contribution plans. Again, this is 401k, this is IRA, right? Is there a legacy risk? No, there is not. Should you pass away, whatever money is left in the account will go to your beneficiaries or whoever you name that as. There's no liquidity risk. You can have access to this money. There could be volatility risk if you are invested in equities, the stock market. There certainly could be the risk. There should not be an inflation risk because you are probably investing this money, so it should be keeping up with inflation. If you are withdrawing the money directly from these accounts for your retirement income, you will potentially fall victim to the withdrawal rate sequence risk. And then, yes, because there is no guarantee on the income of a defined contribution account, you may also be at risk from a longevity standpoint. An investment account, just putting money into your investment account and using it as income, just like with your defined contribution. There's not going to be a legacy risk. Monies that are left over will go to your beneficiary. There's no liquidity risk. You can access the money. There should not be, or there may very well be volatility risk depending on what it is that you're invested in. Like your defined contribution account, you could potentially be keeping up with inflation. You may fall victim to the withdrawal rate sequence risk, and you also may fall victim to or be susceptible to the longevity risk as well. Home equity. If you were to tap into your home equity for retirement income, potentially could be at risk from a legacy and a liquidity standpoint. Certainly the housing market goes up and it's down, so that potentially could, depending on how it is that you're using the home equity. It also may not, but again, just depends. Inflation, theoretically speaking, our homes are going to be going up in value, so not necessarily. Withdrawal rate sequence risk, depending on how it is that I'm using the home equity, it potentially could be. And from a longevity standpoint, yes, I am potentially at risk of this. Finally, life insurance. If you have some kind of a cash value life insurance policy and you are intending to use it for retirement income, how does it stack up? From a legacy standpoint, no, it's not at risk there. In its purest form, life insurance, it creates a legacy through the form of a death benefit. Depending on the kind of policy that you have, there's not going to be a liquidity risk. You should be able to access the cash value quickly. Depending on the policy you have, you may have volatility risk. You may also have a inflation risk. And again, depending on and I always hate having to say depending on, but there are so many different variables to be taken into consideration that essentially, depending on the kind of policy that you have, you may be susceptible to the withdrawal rate sequence risk, or you may not be. And then from a longevity standpoint, it just depends on how are you using the policies. So bringing it all together, what is best for you and your situation? I think that the only way to really know that is to go through and do the work and to understand your numbers, which I'll get into in a second. But a rule of thumb tells us that you should have enough guaranteed lifetime income coming in to cover the cost of your fixed expenses. Okay, so when I say guaranteed lifetime income, I'm talking about income coming from one or a combination of Social Security, pensions, or annuities. So that's income that is guaranteed contractually to be hitting your bank account same day, every month, no matter how long you live for. That very much is peace of mind. People refer to it as sleep insurance, that I know I have a paycheck coming in same day every month. Most of us are accustomed to receiving a paycheck. And so what we're interested in doing is replacing that paycheck. So again, the rule of thumb says that we should have enough guaranteed lifetime income coming in on a monthly basis to cover our fixed costs. Okay? All right, so I really want to encourage you to do the work and do the work sooner rather than later. When I say do the work, I mean thinking about some of those questions that I talked about when we first got started today. Spend time considering what it is you want your life to look like post full-time work. And then get organized. Really understand all of your numbers. Understand the account values that you have, all of it. Understand all of the assets that you are going to be working with to design your retirement income picture. And then I also really want to encourage you to talk with somebody about this, because this is going to be an emotional process. It's going to be an emotional decision, probably a lot of different decisions you're going to be making. And emotions, while they're great, oftentimes that's when we make mistakes. And when we're talking about doing this kind of planning, we don't want to make too many mistakes. We can certainly help. We can help you to understand your current situation. We can help you to really clarify and crystallize what you want your future to look like. And then we can help you to design that lifetime income that will last as long as you need it to. It's really what it is we're trying to do. So where do we go from here? Encourage you to go to movingforwardadvocates.com. There is a course which will allow you to do all that work that I just talked about. There's spreadsheets and worksheets which will allow you to go on and get organized. And along with that $4,500 or $45, you'd have access to professionals as well that you'd be able to talk to email with, to talk to get together with. And if you decide to go that route, you can enter webinar at checkout. You get 20% off the $45 as well. So nothing but a good thing. Or you can simply email me at george@movingforwardadvocates.com, and I'm happy to talk to you and answer any questions that you may have. Keep an eye on the future, says Big James. And thank you for taking the time to visit today. And hopefully we'll talk with you soon.